Okay, so this is the first time in a minute that we have gone live on YouTube. So here we are. We're going to give this a try. This is the Grown Ass Woman's Guide. If you are not familiar or you need a reminder, we help women, strong, capable women, show up and take care of their shit. So it could be admin, adulting, having those difficult conversations, just really taking ownership of our lives and ourselves. So Melody, I'm going to introduce you in 1 second, but I have to say this. So I asked in the group, in the Facebook community, and don't get too attached there because I'm not sure how long that will be up. But but I asked about like adulting and how many women feel like they've got it locked down. And 33% of the women were like, "Yep, got it. No notes. We are good." Um,
Wow,
and
that's
then
impressive.
Right? And then things shift. It's like we're either inconsistent or we're happily burying our heads in the sand, or it's just overwhelming. And so my mission in life is to help women show up, to create the will and trust, to have the conversation, to look at life insurance, all these like lame ass boring topics that we have to really address. Like it's I'm trying to make it a lot more accessible. But here's the thing.
You-
I cannot pretend that the reason that we're not doing this stuff is because we're lazy and we don't want to do it when there is so much going on in this season of our lives, whether we're over 40, 50, postmenopausal, whatever, current events, the new, like all of the things. And so thank you. I'm going to introduce you for coming today and talking about this because I don't want to just be like, what? You're not getting this done? Like, what's wrong with you? Because that is not the case, right? So,
And
Melody,
it's not
Mark,
okay. 'Cause we're
yeah,
all in different places in life. We all have different resources, different barriers. So it's unfair to do this kind of broad and general blanket statement. Because it doesn't. It's disrespectful because it's not taking into account people's actual life circumstances.
100%. And, you know, cultural circumstances, the way, different, whether our backgrounds and all of those things. And it is not, we can't just look across the board and be like, oh, she did it. Look at, she pulled herself up from the bootstraps and you didn't. Like, what's wrong with you? So before we get into it, I got to introduce you. So Melody Murray is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a child mental health specialist. You have a private practice. Obviously, you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Your book, Mourning the Living, obsessed because like, and I will link to the previous episode. We talked about that. You have your workbook is coming out this year.
It'll be
My
coming out
bounce back
this
plan.
year. The bounce back
Awesome.
plan, designing your own healing formula. Because just like you said a few minutes ago, like, care, there are barriers to care, there are cultural barriers to, getting things done. And even as a therapist, I know therapy is not for everyone. And so
Yeah.
that's what the workbook is for, is how do you take care of yourself and heal yourself, you know, on your own, creating your own healing space.
Amazing. Amazing. You've also been seen on the Today Show, The Doctors, HBO's Pause with Sam J, featured in the New York Times, Washington Post, Newsweek. Oh my gosh. But before, so we've talked about this on the podcast before. But, if people don't know you, you came from being a producer of reality television. Like, how do you make a leap? Talk about a nervous system out of whack, man. Like,
Right?
how do you take a leap from that kind of work into the work you're doing now?
Believe it or not, it's not that much of a leap. And when I explain it to people, they go, oh, okay. So look at reality TV. The people that get cast on reality shows are by far the least boring people you're ever going to meet. And so, as a producer and a director in reality TV, you're managing these personalities for weeks or months on end. And so, you start to really read people and understand why people are acting the way that they're acting or what's going to set someone off. That's more important than anything. What's going to set somebody off on set? Because, the job of a producer is like, I want to make sure that the camera's in the right spot. And I got sick of having that as my job, having a camera on someone during their most difficult time,
Yeah.
and and not being able to intervene in any way, not being able to say something, not even to, and not to say that, producers, when really heavy things go down, that you're not supportive in the moment. Most of us are, but I wanted to go deeper than that. And so I started just thinking, I just knew, okay, TV doesn't work anymore. I need to do something else. And then there's that big chunk of time from when you haven't, you acknowledge something. Then there's a big chunk time to go, okay, now what do I do with that information? What do I do next? That took me a couple of years. But I had a really, really hard day, but this hard day was necessary because it helped me have a revelation, which was, I typically wake up very, very early. I wake up with the sun. And the sun came up. I was on set on a show that was a nightmare. And it took me until 1 o'clock to get out of the bed. 1 p.m. I was awake at like 5:30. Didn't get out of bed until 1. And I was like, what is this? What? I didn't beat myself up. I didn't judge myself, but I was just like, what is this? Why can't I move? This is my day off. One of my few days off. And then I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fun anymore. This isn't feeding my soul. This isn't exciting anymore. So what do I do instead? And on that day, I came up with the idea of, you could be a therapist. You love therapy. It's helped you so much. Now you can help other people feel better. Boom. And that's what it was.
And
And
that
and
was it.
and I went to school. I went to graduate school. I got my master's in clinical psychology. I did all the trainings, but dealing with strong personalities or having to deal with people in distress, I got that working in television. I got it. And so it really wasn't that much of a shift
Interesting.
as people would believe. It wasn't that much of a shift.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I mean, just like you said it would, that's so, you're used to working with people in sort of a state of chaos. And I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of, we're talking about grown ass women here, that a lot of us are walking around, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your, like, doesn't matter, like that we're all in a bit of state of chaos right now. Would you agree or disagree with that?
100%. I think only someone blind and dead would say differently. We are absolutely in a state of chaos. And I think that there are multiple reasons why either some people are diving face first into the chaos or completely oblivious to it. And they're
Mm.
both based in the same thing. You grew up in unpredictable circumstances. You grew up in chaos. And if you grow up in chaos, you learn how to navigate it. You learn how to survive. But unfortunately, surviving in chaos doesn't mean you know how to thrive past
Mm.
it. And so, yeah, people are in it, and either you're in it and you're absorbing all of it, or you're on the outside of it, and you're like, because, and I think frankly, it's like part of you is unhealed. You haven't healed from that chaos, and so you're
Mm.
trauma bonding with the chaos, with the unpredictability, with all the ridiculousness going on. You connected to it. In your mind, you're trying to understand it, you're trying to control it in a way. But no, this is something from your past that needs to be healed, which is why this feeling of chaos is so familiar and
Mm.
unscary.
Yeah. How do you think it's showing up in our lives? We're all different. How might the chaos be presenting itself?
In a variety of ways. It chaos is coming out in a variety of ways, including drinking a whole lot,
Mm.
stopping your drinking, eating a whole lot, not eating at all, restricting your eating, irritability, isolation, shutting people out, shutting yourself down, anger, yelling, screaming. you know, change in your sex life and your intimacy level with people.
Mm.
It comes out in a lot of ways because everybody's got different coping mechanisms. And that's what it is. It's like whatever it is that you do when you are stressed is your coping mechanism. And the goal is to make sure that you have healthy coping mechanisms and not the unhealthy ones that will make your life even worse.
Right. Um, where does social media come into play? Because I think
Oh,
there's this, at least for me, there's this need for balance between being informed and finding that, protecting my peace. And social media, I think, is kind of a bullshit excuse for staying informed when there are plenty of other ways that we can stay informed. However, I'm not the only person who says, well, I better go on this app to check and make sure that I'm informed. Like, what do you, where are you with social media?
you know, I think that social media has its place. I think that there are some advantages to have it. It has done a lot for people who are in marginalized communities to be able
Mm.
to connect with other people that see life the way that they do. And so for that, I'm grateful. But I think the other side of it is it's just the surface level of things. How do things look? How do people look? What are those outside external views or ideas on what's healthy and what's positive and what's successful? That is out the window, which I think is hurting us tremendously. And I think that
Mm.
if you don't know exactly how social media is affecting you, take a moment, and when you've grabbed your phone to scroll, think about what were you thinking about right before you grabbed your phone.
Interesting.
Then, and you're gonna have to do it multiple times because you're not gonna remember every time, because it's become this, reaching out for it has become this knee-jerk response to
Hmm.
stress. That even if you don't want to believe that you're stressed, you are, because your mind and your body just starts doing things to try to take care of you and try to
Yeah.
protect you. And that's where you have to create personal boundaries, because the mind isn't your best friend. Your mind runs on whatever fuel you give it. And if you give it hysteria and fear, it's going to run on that, and it's going to constantly be seeking those things to reinforce those ideas. But if you give it love and peace and kindness, then your mind is going to run on that fuel, and that's what it's going
Mm.
to look for. So I think it's really important for you to pay attention to yourself. And when you're
Hmm.
on social media, think about how you feel when you get off. Do you
Mm.
feel informed? Do you feel enthusiastic? Do you feel joy? Or do you feel depleted? Do you feel angry? Do you feel
Mm.
frustrated? If you feel those negative things, that means it's not helping you. It's only,
Mm.
and you may be just reaching out to it not to help something, but just because it's become a habit.
Right. Well, what would you say though if, we're getting on there to make sure that we know what's going on in the world? So of course you're going to feel frustrated and angry and, my whole thing is peace, love, and rage, man. Like I have all three of them all the time.
I
But,
love that. I love
but
that.
how do you know that it's not like what's happening that's actually upsetting you and not just the fact that you're using social media?
I think that you have to, this is where discernment comes in. And
Mm.
this is where rebellion comes in. And, we were groomed to believe that rebellion was a bad thing, because rebellion is what continued the patriarchy, and it
Yeah.
continues misogyny. It perpetuates these things that, if you're going counter to what's the system that's in place, then you run the risk of being exiled. But peace, seeking peace and protecting and guarding your peace, that is now a rebellion. You not
Mm.
being materialistic is now a rebellion. Not being on social media every day, all day is a rebellion. Not watching the news all the time is rebellion. And the reason why we have to see it in a new way is because the circumstances of our lives have changed. We didn't
Yeah.
have 4,000 million channels before. We only had three.
Yeah.
We had 3 channels when we were kids.
And everything was live. I talked to my kids about that. It's like you just tried to catch it when it was on. That was it. There was no on demand.
Everything was live, and so you were focused on what the story was, and you had trust. You had a trust in whoever was delivering the information, that they were trustworthy, because you never got any information to the contrary. The world is very different now, especially when we've got leaders that are introducing alternate facts and fake news. That you have to take that into account as part of your critical thinking and discernment on what you're going to let in and what you are going to push out. So many people think that if I don't have my finger on the pulse, I'm going to be left behind. I stopped watching mainstream news in 2001. When 2000 when 9/11 happened,
Yeah.
I was so saturated and overwhelmed by all of the media. And part of it had to do with my TV job. I was so overwhelmed by it that I said, I can't do this to myself. So I stopped watching the news back then.
Wow.
And people have thought I've been crazy this whole time. And I'm like, hey, you don't think I knew the pandemic happened? You don't think that I knew like wars happen? You don't think?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. So you dialing in doesn't mean that you don't, not you. You dialing in, absolutely, it means that you care. But you not dialing in doesn't mean that you don't care. It just means that you've got a boundary on how information affects you, and you're protecting your peace. And so social media, we didn't have social media forever. We had just the regular news. You could just decide, I'm only going to get my information from a couple of sources, not just one, because we all know now that it's manipulated because it's become a profit center. News that was supposed to be just truth and unbiased is now a profit center. So you can't completely trust it. So this is where you have to build your trust in yourself, and you've got to lean into your intuition. And, intuition, we have been taught, we have been groomed to dismiss our intuition from very early ages, and we don't even realize it. Think about it this way. Little kid wakes up feeling like crap, goes to the parent and goes, I don't feel good. I really feel like crap. I don't think I should go to school. Oh, you're fine, go ahead. Kids actually sick, but what you've taught them is to completely dismiss themselves. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's a family holiday. The pervy relative wants a hug, and you go, I don't want to hug Uncle so-and-so. Mom, please don't. Oh, just go hug him. Give him a kiss. It'll be quick. We are taught very early on to dismiss ourselves and to ignore our intuition. And that's what needs to come back, so that you can build the discernment to decide, what do you want in your diet and what don't you want in your diet. And your diet is more than food. Your diet is the conversations that you're a part of. It's the media, it's the social media, it's the movies, it's the music, it's the TV shows. What are you allowing in? Because whatever you're allowing in is affecting you, whether you want to believe it or not.
Yeah. And I want to take it so, that kid who's forced or, strongly encouraged to hug the pervy uncle is also becomes
And
the woman.
dismiss themselves.
And yes, and then becomes the woman who says no and is coerced, or is told she's a bitch, or overly emotional, or all of these things into her 20s and 30s and 40s, and then wakes up one day, maybe I'm talking about me, but wakes up one day postmenopausal and is like, hell no, no more,
Enough.
not
I'm done.
doing it, enough. And so I think that's where a lot of women are, where you kind of look back and you're like, what did I subscribe to? What did I believe in, and maybe even didn't even believe in and still participated in? We've
What
been
did
programmed for
what was
decades.
I bullied to believe? What was I
Yeah.
bullied to believe? What was I forced to dismiss? What did I have to accept, but I didn't want to? This isn't what we want. We are forced into this by our peers, by our family of origin. We are forced into it. And then as life keeps lifing and you go, I don't like that, I don't want to do that, fuck you, fuck that, you
Yep.
go, wait a second. I don't like how I'm reacting to things. I don't like how I feel when I stand up for myself. That is when clients come to me. Typically, that is when their therapy begins. Most of my clients are women over the age of 30 who've who something has occurred in their life and they're like, "Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like how I handled it. I don't like how I feel about it." Where did that come from?
Mm.
Why am I acting that way? What do I need to do differently? My clientele are high functioning, high performing adults who have childhood trauma and don't even realize it because they never had a broken bone or a
Right.
black eye. It's
Well,
because we've been told to dismiss our emotional neglect when that is what is most detrimental to how we see ourselves and see ourselves in the world.
well, and then there's the language police who are like, "Wait, you use the word trauma and what you're describing isn't trauma." And you're like, "But it was traumatic." You know? And
And
so I
that's the
think,
important thing.
being gaslit by people that maybe, maybe you didn't have some big event, in your childhood, but there were like, that whole death by a thousand paper cuts, right? Like that's still trauma.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. And there is a group of people that talk about big trauma and little trauma.
Mm,
I hate that shit. And I think that when it comes to trauma is relative. You know,
yeah.
what that has occurred could be traumatic to me, but it may not be traumatic to you.
Right.
And vice versa. And that's something that I realized when I was directing MTV's The Real World. One of the things that I thought was so fascinating is something would happen to the roommates in the house and they would all handle it differently. They would
Mm,
all respond and react differently. And I thought that was fascinating. And that was a part of what stoked the interest in human behavior and then transitioning into psychology. Like, what
wow.
is it that is affecting you that is not affecting me and why? And a natural thing for us to do as humans, unfortunately, is to dismiss it. I don't understand it, so I'm going to be afraid of it or I'm going to dismiss it.
Mm,
That's not helpful for anybody. Or I'm going to judge the person for, I wouldn't have felt that way. So we do a lot of judgment and projection. When the better thing to do is to go, wait a second. This person says that they're hurting. I've never hurt like that.
mm.
Let me think about it and not judge it. Let me get curious and not judgmental. We could get so much done without judging other people and with just trying to take them in and understand. Because there is a way to connect with people that doesn't mean you have to experience the exact same thing. But intuition is so incredibly important because, unfortunately, a lot of us have been taught to ignore it, but that's the thing that saves us. That's what protects us. And that is why I think that we've been groomed to ignore it because if we don't take care of ourselves, then what do we do to try to take care of ourselves? We buy shit. We buy clothes and purses. We buy people. We buy drugs. We buy alcohol. We zone out. That's not helping us, but that is what our society is saying because taking a still moment and meditating is still considered controversial.
Mm.
Being quiet, taking a vacation has been told that you're lazy. Why don't you want to keep working? You're lazy. Not being ambitious and wanting to grind or being told you need to grind, the grind culture, that flies in the face of capitalism. But you don't have the time to think about that if you're not giving yourself quiet moments to just put the pieces of the puzzle together and go, huh, this doesn't make sense to me. And now I've got the evidence as to why. Sweet. So now I'm going to do things differently.
Mhm.
We're not slowing down enough to listen to ourselves. And our society is actively working against us listening to ourselves because there's so much money involved when we don't.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we're lacking is self-compassion. right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard like, "Oh, I shouldn't feel this way." And it's like, "Well, wait, what does that mean? I shouldn't feel this way." Like that's how you feel. I think you should feel any way you feel. I'm not sure. I'm not a therapist.
No, but
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 also
we
like
all
I
are though.
shouldn't be doing that, I should be more active. My house should be organized. Oh my gosh, like I mean, talk about I mentioned the will and trust thing. Like I am an advocate for people to get their legal paperwork done, right? And don't leave a mess behind. Like those are things that are very important to me. And I've seen so many people in my life die young and
I've
and
seen the
and all of that.
mess.
And at the same time, I can see each individual person with all that shame, like, oh, I haven't done it. I haven't done it. Well, hold on. Like, you also have just been going through this insanity, or maybe it's terrifying for you, or maybe you have to do it on your own and there's no one here to support you through it, or there's a variety of reasons. But shaming ourselves into anything, whether it's diet and exercise or, adulting or organization or whatever it is, I don't think it's ever worked. Maybe you could speak to that.
No, that's not true. It has worked. It worked
Mm,
for millennia, but it
mm,
doesn't work anymore because people are
okay.
waking up and realizing that those old structures, those old systems were never meant to make the greater population better. It was meant to make a few people richer. Those systems worked forever. We just didn't feel empowered enough to push up against it.
Yeah.
We just didn't feel strong enough to push up against it because, and part of not feeling strong enough is when we saw people push up against the system, they were lynched, they were raped, they were robbed, their houses were set on fire. I remember a few years ago, I overheard a conversation that these two women were having. These two older white women were talking to each other. I think we were like a coffee shop or something. And this was either right before a protest or right after. And one of the ladies said, "Gosh, everybody's just so angry all of a sudden. Why is everybody so mad?" And I thought, pardon me, but I'm totally going to interrupt your conversation. I've been eavesdropping. That's what I do. I love listening to people's conversations. And I said, you know what? I choose to see it differently. And I think that's one of the powers that we have as individuals. We
Mm,
get to choose how we see everything. You could choose, this is what the group sees, not having children. The group sees that as a woman not having a child looks like this, and a man not having a child,
mm,
unfortunately, completely looks the complete opposite way. You can choose those, or you can choose something completely different. And so you can choose to beat yourself up for not following along with what society said you should do, or you could use some critical thinking and discernment and go, how many people do I know grew up in households where they were abused or they knew that they weren't loved? Most of them. So that may mean a whole lot of people shouldn't be having children, right?
mm.
It's okay to have those thoughts. It's necessary to have those thoughts because the alternative is getting yourself into something that you're gonna later regret because you just didn't sit and think and go, what feels right to me?
Right.
What feels right to me? And we've got to build that self trust in us because we have it as little kids, but it gets tamped down by our family of origin, our parents, our grandparents, our neighbors, our siblings, by our coaches, our teachers, our classmates. That's why everyone's heard the stories about how all little kids are geniuses and connected to multiple dimensions. Went from birth until when they start school, at least in
Mm,
the American education system. We're all geniuses. We're all open. We're all loving and accepting until we get into the system that says being an individual does not work. Thinking on your own, thinking on your own does not work because the system is built on capitalism and you haven't figured that out yet.
right.
That there needs to always be something that you're afraid of not having, something that
Mm,
you're not good enough for. So therefore, you've got to buy these things to try to make yourself feel better, which is external, which is looking for people outside of you, things outside of you to validate you. It's looking for
right.
outside things to validate you when every single thing that a person needs is already inside them. You don't even need therapy. You just need to trust yourself and trust your intuition. I have conversations with clients regularly and it's typically in a situation where I am their first therapist. Well, I'll say, Jackie, every single thing that I've said to you has resonated so strongly because it was already in you. You already knew. You already knew. It's in you. I'm not a magician. I'm not psychic. But you know what you need. You know what you want and what you don't not want. You know what you want and what you don't want. And what we've got to get into the habit of doing is trusting ourselves, even when the people around us aren't strong enough to trust themselves.
Yeah. So, the buzzwords and all that, you get on TikTok and it's like, oh, you're dysregulated, and so suddenly everybody's a therapy expert. What does that mean? And how do you see that showing up in our bodies like today, these days?
I feel two ways about social media and its impact on mental health. I do appreciate, how information is being. I do appreciate I do appreciate how much information is being put out there and becoming accessible and approachable to people who aren't in those worlds, in those realms regularly. The people on the coasts in beach communities, are people in like woodsy communities typically have access to others who are thinking at a different level. They're meditating, they're doing alternative things instead of, church, which is how most of us were raised in most communities. Like that's your only resource. And I think that, that part is really necessary. The trusting of yourself and getting back to who you are. I believe that that's what all of it is. I believe that we are all, whether you realize it or not, getting back to the essence of who we are in our natural state of soul and spirit. We are souls living a human experience. We're human right now, but there's so much that we don't understand that is fun to talk about because there's truth to it and because it helps us feel our loads are lighter, because they are lighter when you don't think that the buck stops just with you or it stops with your church, when you've gotten evidence to the contrary of that being the truth that you want to live by. Trusting yourself and your intuition is so extremely important. And the thing is, the more you trust yourself, the louder that voice gets. Because right now, society's voice is very loud, and it's the loudest voice in most people's heads. Society, through social media. But when you start listening to yourself, that voice gets quiet. Your own intuition, your higher self, your future self, whatever you want to call it, spirit, source, that voice gets louder until you clamp onto it and go, all right, this is the right way for me to go. And then it'll get quiet because it'll know that you trust you. So it doesn't have to scream at you. It doesn't have to have these moments where you almost died twice in 1 month, like I did last year. There are these things we have to pay attention to ourselves.
True
and I
story,
think that's
by the way. I just in case someone's listening and they think like, no, she's just kidding. No, she's not kidding.
I almost died twice in 4 weeks. The anniversary of that was yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
Yesterday is when I entered the emergency room after landing from 3 weeks in Asia. And so much has happened in the last year. So much and not much at the exact same time, as strange as that sounds. I've always been a really ambitious person. I've always wanted to get a lot done. I've wanted to have a lot associated with my name and legacy. And then when I almost died twice, I was like, why did that happen? What am I supposed to learn from this? What have I been ignoring? And it's been eye-opening. This last year has been really eye-opening. And the bottom line is I was dismissing myself. I was ignoring myself because that's what I was groomed to do. That is what 99% of all women are groomed to do. Dismiss yourself. And it comes in so many different ways. Don't be the bitch. Don't say no. Just let it happen. You're too loud. You're bossy. I
You're
don't want
too
to be bossy.
sensitive. Like when something bothers you, you're too sensitive,
You're too
and it's like,
sensitive. It's not you can't be angry. That's a big
mm-hmm.
one. So many women have been told to dismiss their emotions, and most importantly, the emotion that they're told to dismiss is anger. Only men are allowed to be angry. A woman can't be angry because that's not sexy. Unless it's
Mm,
BDSM.
right.
Unless you're
Right.
paying for it and it's this counter thing. But there's this book that I believe the world should know about. It's by Gabor Mate.
Mm-hmm.
Gabor. Mate is Mate. He is a medical doctor. He started out delivering babies and then transitioned into psychiatry. And his focus is chemical dependency and childhood trauma. And yes, they are related. And he wrote a book called The Myth of Normal. The myth of normal is all those conspiracy theories backed by data.
Mm,
Yes, your phone was created to hijack your mind and addict you. Yes, women do get diagnosed with, immunodiseases exponentially more than men. Yes, women do have depression yes, women do have depression more than men do. And here are the reasons why. Because we've been told to suppress our
yes.
reality in order to serve the patriarchy. And in that suppression, we've gotten cancer. We've gotten
Mm-hmm.
sicker because we're not expressing all of ourselves, but because we're pleasing the people around us. Hell no. Rebel against it. Take care of yourself. Please yourself. What do you want to do? I had this great time with a girlfriend of mine. We went to this petting zoo and we're playing with all the mini cows and the mini goats. And our conversation switched into this place of, and I can't even remember the catalyst, but it was like, I don't want to do that, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple. But
Yeah.
like, I know it's simple only because I've personally done the work on my people pleaser selves that was like, I can't make somebody mad. I can't upset someone. I shouldn't disappoint them. What are they going to do to me? Now, that first fear came from violence. We are doing those things. We're people pleasing because we don't want to get beaten. We don't want to get raped. We don't want to get harmed in some way. And that is largely based in what men have done to us. And then it switched to what women have done to us. Because then I don't want to be the outcast. I don't want to be the loner because I don't care about, what all the other girls are caring about. I don't care about that. But even if what they care about is destructive and you're on the outside of that, then there's still the fear of being ostracized and being alone. So standing on your own 2 feet, unfortunately, is rebellious in these days, but we need that rebellion. Rebellion is resistance against the systems that don't work for us. So
Yeah.
rebel.
Absolutely. And I think that we have to rebel against the idea that we should want, like, I'm just going to go to something so basic like decluttering, right? Like my closet. And there's all this stuff online and you follow all these organization experts and this and that, and you're like, "Oh, I should be doing that." And then Saturday comes and goes and you feel terrible about yourself because I didn't do it. Guess what? There's a good chance you just don't care. Like there's a good chance that is not something you value. Don't clean your closet.
Fuck that closet. Fuck that closet. I love that you
Right.
brought that up. That is absolutely true. Like that's just like that's not a driver for you
Right.
anymore. And it's okay. And
Yeah.
that's what I realized. Like there are all these things that I want to do and all these things I said that I want to do. And then I realized I don't have the energy or motivation to do any of that crap.
Yeah.
What
And
does
maybe
that
a
say
younger
about me?
version. Well, right. It says nothing about you.
It
But
says nothing that I don't need it to say about me. I get to decide what it says about me.
yeah.
I get to decide that means that's no longer important to me.
Yeah.
Or I'm
But there may
healing
have
from
been
this
an
other thing.
right. There may have been a younger version of you who truly wanted that. And that's amazing. But I think the thing I really want to get clear is like we need to sit down now. Like that's why my journal is everything to me. I love my journal because all of my bullshit comes out and I go, that's not what I believe at all. Like that is an older version of me. And maybe, it's people going through perimenopause or menopause, but you just start to get to a point where you're like, how many women are getting divorced or empty nest or, you know, taking care of older parents or whatever it is, and just going, this thing that I say I value has nothing to do with who I am today. And so like really getting honest about that. Like I have a workshop coming up that, I'll share later, but where people are just like, get honest with the thing that's hanging over your head. Is it actually yours? You know?
And that
That's the work.
honesty, it's a lot of work, and I love that you brought it up. It's because it's absolutely true. Is that we can be driven by dreams of other people, and a lot of us
Yeah.
are. This is what my mom always wanted. This is what my
Yeah.
dad always wanted. But is it what you want? It's
Right.
okay that you don't want what they wanted. It's crazy. I was watching this reality show on Netflix called not a reality show. It was a documentary called Caterpillar, and it was these people that go to India and they change their eye color, and it's dark skinned people changing their eye color to blue and green and gray, and this
Mm.
and this man did it, and his mom he had a lot of trauma, and so but he chose to ignore the trauma and only focus on the outside. And hello, if that is not our world. But there's something that the mom said as he was trying to appeal to her about how he feels. She was like, I own you, I own you.
Yeesh.
And so many people feel owned even by parents that are dead. They feel this allegiance, this an ownness that your life is not your own. And it absolutely is your own. And so there has to be a redefinition moment that happens within us in a variety of ways. Redefining what success means, redefining what independence means, redefining what healing means, everything. Because how you are, what those theories, those thoughts mean what you were taught they mean by other people. And those people may not have been healthy. They may not have been positive. They just carried on what they were taught. And so you have to have a level of honesty with yourself that is hard, but once you cross over into it, it's freeing because you see the world in a whole new light. You see your whole self in a new light because a lot of people are just seeing themselves through the lens of their mothers, their grandmothers, their fathers that they were trying to please, but those people weren't pleased with themselves. They weren't happy with themselves. And you have to have those moments where you're really truthful with yourself about the people who had the biggest influence on you. And was it healthy? Was it helpful? And it typically isn't. It's typically not helpful. A lot of times it is. And that's why you do have to take the strengths that you've learned, the healthy things that you've learned, the confidence that you've learned from your ancestors. But there's some stuff that is harmful to you that you've carried the baton generation after generation, and it doesn't help you at all.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really important to me is that we don't go like have somebody listening and going, oh, all of this is bringing all of this up. Like, this is me.
Now, what
You're
do I do?
spot on. Da da da. Now we're done. Thanks so much for listening. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that we can do today and the next week and the coming months? Like, how can we heal? And I know that healing is a long game. It's not a one and
Non-linear.
done. You know, but what are some of the things that we can do, Melody, to really regulate ourselves and feel better in our bodies and really be able to say, no, that's not what I want, so I'm not going to do it.
There are many things that can be done. Regulating your nervous system is extremely important. When you notice that you're tight, your shoulders are in your ears, you just feel this sense of stress and you don't know why, pay attention to that. Is it high blood pressure? Is it anxiety? Is it something completely different? Get it checked out. Pay attention to your body because our body is that first beacon that says, hey, pay attention, wake up, eyes open. Pay attention to your body. But again, so many women have been told not to due to childhood sexual assault. You're told to completely ignore your body. Pay
And never
attention to what your
mind
body
the
is saying.
fact that doctors don't necessarily listen to women, specifically or more so women of color. And so there's also that. That's a whole other episode we can get into. But yes, okay. So
And
we're
we
paying
should do
attention
it.
to our
That is a
bodies.
whole other
Yes.
episode. But
Yes.
just, listening to yourself is so incredibly important, because what that does is that starts to develop that discernment of, I know I am the expert of myself, of my body. That doctor is saying I totally need to ignore my fatigue and my brain fog, but I've never been fatigued or brain fogged before. So I'm going to pass over this person. No disrespect, but I'm going to go get I'm going to go get curious. I'm not going to be so judgmental on that person, because I now know, with all the information, that studies on women was not okayed. It wasn't approved until 1993. And how long have we been on this planet? How long have we been making people for this planet? So, taking it in that way, not taking things so personally, but just like, okay, I just need to look deeper, empowering yourself to do that, because your health is the most important thing. You've got to make your peace the most important thing in your life, and repel anything that it goes against that peace. And that, putting that lens on in your day-to-day will help you when someone's asking you to do something that you don't really want to do, and you notice that your face frowns and your shoulders just slump and you get a pit in your stomach. That's your body saying, say no. Don't do it. You don't want to do this. This is going to help you at all. You're being used. Whatever it is. Listen. Trust. No, I'm not going to do that. And a lot of what we do now in our adult ages, those reflexes, those reactions, those responses those reactions were created when we were little kids and we didn't have access to mentors. We couldn't get in a car and move away. We didn't know how to escape our current environment, so we just had to make it work. But we're still, a lot of people are 50 making it work with mechanisms from when they were 5. Overeating, going silent, just crying. You've got to evolve and grow up your coping mechanisms, and that's where being honest with yourself comes into play. You've got to take care of yourself. Self-care goes way beyond manicures, pedicures, massages. Self-care is, I know every time I go to that party, someone insults me and it drives me crazy and it ruins my whole night. So guess what? I'm not going to that party this year. Yeah. I know that.
And you know how long they'll be angry that you weren't
cupcakes for the class party. I'm exhausted. They complain. It pisses me off. So this year I'm just going to buy them, or I'm going to tell somebody else to handle the cupcakes. I'm going to do decorations.
Plates and napkins. I was always that person.
Just be honest with yourself. And I know that people haven't been honest with you before, but that doesn't mean that you can't change the tide. You need to, because the people around you learn from you, especially if you have children.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, this time went so fast, and I know you have an appointment after this.
One thing else I want to say about self-care. Yeah. I say one of the things I love to do is you take a calendar. You could print it, a blank calendar from Google. Put your self-care events at the beginning of every month or the end of every month, whatever. Put your self-care items on that calendar, and do not reschedule them or cancel them for anybody. Because
what do those events look like? What are those?
What are those events? Going on a walk in nature. Nature is so incredibly healing and restoring. Hanging out with your girlfriends, but and talking about silly shit, not necessarily talking about the news of the day. Playing with your cat and just like rolling around with your cat. Going to a stupid movie, cooking your favorite meal. Self-care is anything that restores you for you. It's not about doing stuff for other people necessarily, but sometimes when people are seriously depressed or they focus too much on themselves, sometimes their self-care needs to be volunteering. It needs to be taking your energy off yourself and pouring it into other people. But you need to get outside of your own crap. Don't be mired in your own crap. Look at your stuff with a loving, positive eye, a loving, positive lens. How am I going to learn from this situation? Not how I messed up. How can I learn? What is the lesson in this moment? What can I take from this and be better? That's what processing is. A lot of people have a really bad understanding of what processing is. Processing isn't thinking something to death. That's rumination. Processing is I'm thinking about something a lot, and then I'm thinking, how did that make me feel? Because the emotions are important about a history or a memory. How do I feel about this thing? How do I want to feel? What is a better thought and feeling about this situation that will serve me better? It's that evolution from just thinking it to death, and you end up in the same place every time. You end up in a new place. That's really, really important. And I think it's okay to look at social media for, new terms of psychology that can help you in, your behavior, but don't just rely on social media, just like you won't rely on just one news station. You won't rely on just one author. You won't rely on just one therapist. Bring it all together, all this information you're getting. This is a part of critical thinking. Bring it all together and then use your discernment to decide what makes sense most for my life. Because a lot of people think self-care is mani-pedis and massages, and they can't afford them. But they don't know just going on a walk without music in their ear is also self-care. Letting your kids play and you not being in charge of their play all the time is also self-care. Delegating is self-care. Deleting things from your calendar altogether is self-care.
And not outsourcing what's important to you. Not outsourcing, what we believe to be in our best interest, even though we may have been taught that for 5 decades or 4, whatever it is. Like,
Every
I think it's
generation.
so important. Oh, did I lose you?
You have a right to do things differently. And I think that's a reason why so many people don't do things differently. It's because you've got people that love you, but people that are stagnant that go, but that's not the way we do things. We've always done it this way.
Yeah.
Well, you can keep doing it this way. I'm going to rebel. I'm going to do it this way. You can think whatever you want to think. I'm doing something else. And that's okay. Yep. We need to allow other people to come to the right conclusions about their own lives. And it doesn't have to be a certain way because of us, because that's projection. And we should not be projecting ourselves on other people when we know that other people have different backgrounds, different barriers, different challenges. Let people do whatever the hell they want to do. You take care of you in the way that works best for you.
Perfect ending. I am joining your rebellion. I would follow you anywhere. Melody, you have to come back soon, okay? Please promise me.